we don't draft in vacuums. We start with language that is pre-exist and possibly exists because it's been litigated over and over. Like, for example, for a long time, it was standard practice to include arbitration in every contract, but it wasn't that way when I started practicing law. However long ago, it became standard practice over the course of my career, but it's now sort of falling out of favor in certain contracts because arbitration is so expensive, and there's some downsides to the enforceability of the results of arbitration. But we pick up pieces from other people's contracts, and in a way, if you use generative AI to do a first draft, is it that much different than the hours that I would spend doing a first draft, putting together pieces from different contracts? What do you think?
You're asking me or you're asking Sarah?
Oh, sorry, I was asking Caroline. I apologize. And then Sarah.
I think
Caroline, from a practice
there is a distinct difference in that. On the one hand, the language that you're using when you're putting together a contract based on other pieces and clauses, you're generally using language that was developed by a human, that has been workshopped, that's been thought through by a human. Whereas when you ask the AI to do it, you really have to check it and make sure that it does comply with the specifics of the legal verbiage, that it actually says what you think you want it to say. So the AI is it's beautiful and grammatically correct and sounds very lovely on the first pass, but a lot of times when you get down into the weeds of these little tiny details of word choices that matter, the AI doesn't necessarily understand those details. So in some ways you have to be very careful when you're asking the AI to do something. Whereas if I'm taking language from, say, a contract that I had written previously, I can skim it a little more. I'm like, oh yes, this is the particular indemnity clause that I want, or something of that nature. So that's one difference, I think.
I think that's such a good point. And then we'll go back. Earlier today, I was talking to a colleague about an operating agreement for one of their clients, and got off the phone with them. And then I was like, wait. And then I picked up the phone and called them back and said, well, what's the exit? What happens to your client's IP that they're contributing to this venture if the venture falls apart? And my colleague went and looked at the bottom of the contract where the terms, the operating agreement, where the terms related to dissolution and disassociation and withdrawal were, and there was some very disturbing language in there that would have adversely impacted their client. And I think that's the problem with AI, is that if it writes the contract for you, it may include provisions that, especially if you're not a lawyer that knows how to go and read that legalese, might have some snafus in there, because the devils are in the details.
Well, I think that's the problem with like any of these services online, that where you can get a contract or a will or something like that, because exactly right, the devil's in the details. So even if the original contract was written by an attorney and not a computer, you don't know if it necessarily is in your best interest.